it's Biddy Penny. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be making a mixed media journal cover, but I'm also going to be making a flowist journal. So to start, I did bite back the spine with Tyvek, and then I used Fabrifix and I put on my fabric washi tape and some paper. And then the inside covers, I really just love these. This book it was discarded from a public library, and I just loved the stamps and the vintage color of the paper, and so I just wanted to protect those. So I am just adding this silicone sheet, and this is micropore tape that I'm taking some of the tackiness off of the tape so it doesn't tear the paper, because this book is a little older. So now I'm just checking the cover and making sure it's relatively clean. I love that gold enamel, but I am going to cover everything with white gesso. So this is a cloth book cover. So it's a hardback cloth book cover. And, it does have that residue from the tape where the slip cover was taped to it for so long and everything, but you won't even know that already. Once I get the gesso on it, you can't tell. But yeah, I did want a little bit of the darkness, the black to still peek through. If you didn't want that, you could just let the first layer of gesso dry and add a second layer. But I knew I would be adding a ton of mixed media. Look, I finished that jar. That one's done. Good thing I had a big one on backup. This one is halfway done already, you guys. Not from this project, but once I open a jar, it goes quick. I love this stuff. So this is the Crafter's Workshop Light and Fluffy paste. And so I did get it on Amazon. I'll try to leave that linked down below because I do think it's the best price. I searched around and it's a big jar. It dries fast. That's why I like this stuff. It is stinky at first. So if you're sensitive to smell, be aware, but that smell does kind of wear off over time, but it does have a pretty pungent smell. All right, so I used a stencil and I'm stenciling the pattern with the light and fluffy paste, and I let it dry just a little bit, like 5 minutes, and then I brought in another stencil to finish the back side to give it the back side of the cover some pattern. Now, the light and fluffy paste isn't completely dry in 5 minutes. It's just dry enough that I can put another stencil on and not ruin the front cover. So, but it all depends on your climate, so you'd have to do it accordingly for your environment. But this worked for me, so now I have those done, and those are completely dry. This video had to be a voiceover, you guys, because there's a lot of waiting for things to dry. So I'll let that completely dry, and then I started adding my enamel sprays. So I just dusted it with a light purple and a light peach, and now I have this real dark charcoal color. I wanted the edges to be super dark because it just gives it that vintage look that I love, like a vignette. But I wanted the center to be really bright. So I'm doing my edges and I'm loving the way this is looking. I know it's rough right now. I did blot it out a little bit and try to make sure it was in like the crevices, because now this is really textured with that paste and that design. So now that I have that kind of blotted, I'm going to clean up my desk a little bit, and because I don't want that getting on the back side of my book. These are all Dina Wakely sprays. They are an enamel acrylic spray, so it's much different than like a distress spray from Tim Holtz because these don't move. They are permanent. It's like a liquid acrylic paint, if you will. And they kind of have a gloss to them. They're really unique. They're really beautiful. I like them a lot. So now I have this napkin, and it is a 3-ply. I'm using a piece of masking or washi tape here to remove that second layer that's pretty pesky, the one that's really on there. And then I brought in a water brush because I'm taking out that center of the napkin. I don't want that white part of that napkin covering all the pretty paint that we just did. I just want the border of the flowers, and I want the front and the back done. So I use my water pen again, which is just a water brush. If you don't have a water brush, you can just dip a brush in water and do the same thing. Okay, Mod Podge. Wow. I've been through almost a bottle and a half of this since December. But, okay, so I put down a layer of Mod Podge, and then I put my napkin on top. And I am going to just kind of mash this down lightly. I'm not putting any more on my brush right now. I'm just trying to get it in the grooves again. I'm using this silicone makeup brush. You can get them at the Dollar Tree or on Amazon. And once it's dry, then I go in and add a layer on top. And you can tell from this that I'm generous. I'm being very generous with this because this cover... I'm making this cover for my idea book, for my junk journal ideas of like pockets and flips and tucks and all the things. And so I plan on, referencing it often, using it often. So I really want this cover to be sturdy and hold up to the test of time. So I am putting a good layer of Mod Podge on that napkin, and then yes, once again, I have to let this dry before we move on to the next stage. It really didn't take that long, and if you time it with other things that you're doing in your day, like, I just went off and made breakfast for the family and came back, and went off and started a load of laundry and did a couple of things and came back. So I made this on like a Saturday morning. Okay, now I'm using double-sided tape, and I'm going to put these beautiful Mega Flake Chocolate Box Indigo Blue flakes all around the whole edge of this book. So all edges, I'm going to go all the way around. And right now I'm just kind of showing you a zoomed out perspective of it, but here in a second I'm going to zoom in and show you up close kind of my approach to this. But I love this cherry on top double-sided tape. It is super strong. I really just don't have to worry about this losing its grip or anything over time. It's just super strong. So here's a close-up view. So I put down a piece of the tape. This is a 5/8. I fold up so it's doubled. I'm using my silicone brush to kind of mash it down and make sure it's in all the grooves. And then I put on my flakes. Now, I like to put my flakes on, I like to separate them because usually the flakes will have layer upon layer. And I do like to separate them because I feel like I get a better application. And then I do kind of put them on a little bit heavy because I want to make sure I'm not using my fingers too much in this, that my fingers aren't touching the tape. I don't want to lose any of the stickiness. So that's why I'm like using different tools to make sure it's burnished to the book before I use the release tape and release it. And then I'm using my silicone brush. So here's an example of all the layers. So I separate all these layers before I apply them. And look at that. Oh, I just love it. So luckily this totally worked. I didn't get a bunch of sprays on the inside of my book, and I can remove the micropore tape and all the things. And I did go around the edges of my book, just making sure I have a good application everywhere. And I am going to go ahead and show you guys how I put this together. But yeah, here's where I check all the edges. I make sure there's nothing sticky, that everything is very well adhered down. And I just think it's so grungy beautiful, you guys. I love the way the flowers look now. And just, I don't know, I just love it. So I put in 3 elastic bands, and I'm going to make this a flowish journal. I did put my signatures together, separately from this because this video really is made to highlight making that mixed media cover. But I decided to make my idea journal a flow journal because I know it's going to get alligator mouthed real quick. So this way I can remove pages, and it's adjustable kind of as I go. So here's how the cover turned out. I just love it so much. Once I have my ideas and the book completed, I can go back and stitch things in. It doesn't always have to be a flow journal. That's the other cool thing about the flow journal, is that you can get your journal exactly the way you want it. Once it's completed, then you could stitch in your signatures, and I love that about it. So I'm going to give you a quick flip through. I made sure to give myself plenty of white pages in my flow journal because I think I'll want to come up with ways to address a white page, as far as like different ideas that I come up with, or from the Roxy Creates Challenge. So I wanted to make sure I put plenty of white pages in there, and so that I would be addressing them as I went. I would definitely suggest that for your idea journals. If you make one, make sure I just use some of my absolute favorite papers and then lots of white pages as well. So that's how I chose to make mine. It's like all the pretty papers that I love and adore, plus some white pages. And I love the way it came together. It's just so beautiful. It's going to be hard to take pages out of here, I think. I hope you give this a try. I had a wonderful time making this cover. It's so rich and grungy and beautiful. The flow journals are really approachable, great for beginners. Thanks so much for hanging out here with me, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.